So, welcome, my name is Pedro. I'm here to show you some interesting stuff I've been working on in my job. So, the name of this presentation is a bit long and basically it was just something related to authorization and Node.js. So, how many of you guys use Node.js on your daily work? Yeah, so yeah, okay, we got some. Okay, so I'll start presenting who I am and what I'm doing here, a little bit of authentication versus authorization stuff, and then I'll mostly focus on ACL and creating an authorization, simple authorization mechanism and reliable one. We call them powered toasts, powdered toastman. I'll get to it in a while, then I'll show you off how the API of the library, and then a demo. So, who am I? I'm a full stack JavaScript developer at Ben. Most of you guys probably never heard of it, but most of you guys probably have seen it. I love JavaScript. I started that with Java, but then I said no, this is horrible. So I moved to JavaScript. I like to do front end and back end, but I even prefer to do back end stuff. I play saxophone on my spare time, and I like Star Wars a lot. So, what is Ben? Ben is basically branded entertainment network, and it's a product placement company. So we basically we put brands inside the media stuff, like films, series, YouTube, whatever, you name it. And we are developing a self-service application where you can choose your TV show, choose your brand, and you put some money in and you can show off your brand, show off your product there. And we are a full remote dev team. We have people from Brazil, Philippines, Portugal, of course, Slovakia, Romania, the UK, and the US. So we have a lot of different time zones, but it's really good fun. And we have a lot of areas, web, API, data science, DevOps, QA, test automation, and you can find us on those links. So I was telling that you probably never heard of Ben, or Branded Entertainment Network, but you have seen it. Because if you have seen Forrest Gump, you've seen Forrest Gump drinking Dr. Pepper. Yeah, and that was made by us. Sherlock, the TV show also, and the Hangover movie, because everybody knows Hangover, right? And you see that baby, and the guy is using a baby carrier from Baby Bjorn, and basically it was us that changed the script to include that in the movie, and nobody noticed that that is product placement. So that it's like product placement at its maximum. So it's pretty cool, and it's a really nice place to work at. So, starting off, authentication, authorization, what is that? Authentication, probably know this, is I am who I say I am. And authorization, that I can do what I'm trying to do. And HTTP is not helpful in this because HTTP 401 is unauthorized, but it's for authentication processes. I don't know why they named it like this. And 403 forbidden, yes, for authorization. So it's kind of messed up, but yeah, it works. So how do we deal with authorization? There's one thing called ACLs. They are access control lists. Basically are lists of what you can do to certain types of objects. And from my experience, what I've noticed, there are like two kind of approaches to this problem. There is one that's like role scopes. So you have a role, and if you are an admin, you can do everything. If you are an internal user, you can do some things. If you are a publisher, you can do some other things. And there's like the other way around, that it's like these permissions are based on the object itself. So you don't have access to everything, but it's just from your role. But that specific object tells who has access to it. So for that example, for cars, if you had like an entity called cars, and if you're an owner, you can drive the car. If you're a passenger, you can just tag along. In the other way around, if you are the specific car number one, only Alice can drive it and Bob can tag along. So what I'm trying to advocate here is for the second one. So, and the first one, I don't like it that much. I'll tell you why. Because I think it's just too generic, and if you're really, if you want to to build a reliable authorization system, it just gets crazy because you're just validating the access based on the user role, and you will end up with a user having tons of roles, like hundreds of them, because everything if you want to make it really specific for every instance, if you're using scopes, if you're using roles, you will have to have one role for each object on you're trying to access, and this is crazy. And one other thing that this is not very good at is that it won't tell you why you cannot access it. So you look at it and yeah, you don't have this role, yeah, but how can I obtain it? If I really should have access to this, how can I obtain it? And why don't I have access to it? Yeah, so good luck, have fun. This is what you end up with. One user object with tons of roles for every object that you have on the database. So to avoid this, we've made a library called Powdered Toast, which is a homage to Powdered Toastman from Ren and Stimpy. I don't know if you guys know, but it's like, yeah, it saves kittens and protects your app. So yeah, if you guys are familiar with Happy.js, they do a lot of, most of the modules have something related to Ren and Stimpy. So yeah, maybe. The name is still ongoing, but yeah. So what does this allows you? Basically, for every request that you make, lets you decide on that specific moment if you should be authorized or not just based on the role, but based on the user that's requesting it, based on the requests you're sending, based I mean the payload, the params, the query, all of that stuff, and even the entity you're trying to access. So this is really important. It lets you do a wide range of use cases. And what we really wanted to do is configuration over code, over convention. So if you have a small configuration set, and it's very easy to see what's the authorization process and why you can access or why you can't. Also, for it to be reusable for all your routes, or if you have a full-scale API, it gets crazy to understand what's all the rules there. And also, this was a very important point for us, unify the front-end and back-end authorization, because what we had previously was you have authorization rules for your back-end, and then for the front-end you have it duplicated, right? Because you have to maintain a copy of the same rules on both sides, unless you, or else you will end up with something being showed up on the UI, but when you click it will send a 403 or something like that. You don't want that to happen, or the other way around. So you need to keep them in sync, and this was what we aimed for. So I was talking about configuration. So this is really simple. This is how you should configure your permissions for a route. So this is the permissions object. So it's an object that tells you for a specific plugin or for a specific set of routes on your API, it tells you that there are several activities. The activities are like create, read, update, whatever, you name it. It's what you want. Basically, it's setting, if you're trying to access a list, you say it's a list or whatever, you call it, you name it. But you state here, what are those activities? And you say, which are the permissions? So you can notice, for example, to drive, you need to be an adult and have a real car, or be a fake car. So everyone can drive a fake car. Or even if you want to fuel your car, right? You either are rich or you're not rich and it's on sale. So you can specify like this all the rules for your route. So it's very easy to see if you're trying to access a rule, if you're a developer, right? If you're trying to access the route and it tells you, hey, you're forbidden, yeah, well, just look at the configuration. It's pretty clear what's being done here. But yeah, where are these is adult, is real car? So this is the other part of the configurations. These are basically functions that receive params that I told you before: the user, the payload, the resource, which is a resource you're trying to access the query, well, mostly request stuff, the thing you're trying to access, and the user. So you can do stuff like if the user is an adult, yeah, you can check even if what's the user country, and based on that decide the age. 21 for the US or something like that. If it's a real car, so we have 4 wheels and an engine, but you can do whatever you want. And the last part is really interesting because you can it's only on sale, for example, if the full price you're trying to put right now is lower than the one that it was beforehand. So this is really nice, and you can see for the wide range of operations that you can make. And it's really simple to understand what's happening on your route. So the API, it's super simple. So it says permissions.check, and you say the name of the activity, for example, drive, right? And the name of the resource you're trying to access. And this will magically call those permissions you stated. The activity is the activity name, and the resource will be the resource that will appear there. And then there's the second one, wrap permissions. That basically is what what I was telling you about when I was saying in sync with the front end and back end. So basically calling wrap permissions will return whatever you were calling. So if you're requesting for a car, you receive the car object, and then it's added a permissions property, and it tells you, yeah, for this car you can do all this set of things. So this is very interesting. It's a completely different approach than we, for example, we even have React components made just with this object, that you just provide them and it will render or not based on the activity, the thing you're trying to access. So it's pretty simple to have all things in sync, and you just have the permissions in one file on the API. So other stuff that this does is retrieve the permissions across all entities. So if you have API, you don't have just one route, right? You have tons of them. And imagine if you're doing the login, and afterwards you receive a permissions object like the one I showed you with all the entities, or not all of them, but the parts of your app. And it tells you, yeah, you can list those ones, you can create those ones, so you can know after login what you should show to the user or not. Request modifiers, that's basically allowing you to, for example, if you're user A or Bob or Alice, if they both request cars, Bob should only see his cars and Alice should only see her cars. So this is like a step before sending the request to the handler, that you can allow to include conditions based on this validator. So Alice, you could change the request to add some extra query to send to the database that should, I don't know, just search for cars with the Alice name or something like that. Yeah, so the thing, this should be always reusable, right? And we also have some schema validations, because if you're messing up with a response and adding a permissions object, if you have validated that route, it will mess up. So basically, this is just some helper stuff. So for the demo, yeah, I'll try to create here a simple API and show you of how this is built. Do you guys familiar with App.js? It's basically a web, it's like Express, but better. So yeah, so I'll try to show you. Okay, oh shit. Yeah, can you see this? So this is our app. And our app, I'm using Lerna, which is monorepo stuff. So you can just build your application using a monorepo. So let's just show you first, since you guys are not that familiar with App.js or Node itself. So this is our server. Basically, I'm stating that I'm starting the server and calling it with these plugins. Plugins is how we organize code in App.js. So basically allows you to set one set of things from the API. So this will be all the authentication stuff, all the permission stuff, all the fuel stuff. So from the server, I can show you the authentication. The authentication for this example is just really simple. What I'm doing here is you're authenticated and the name is what you pass in and as a query param as a user. So this is just a stupid authentication, just for it to be really simple. Basically, this is what it's doing. If you pass in a user on the query, it will say, yeah, that's the user. And then I can show you, yeah, here. So here is the library. This is where the magic happens, but I won't show you that because it's a bit too crazy. Just first, let's show you how simple is this. Basically, this is how simple it is. I'm creating an instance of that library, and I can pass in initial configuration. This is like if I want any default validators, the one that I showed you before, like is adult or something like that, to be passed to all the routes. So this would be where you want to have the reusable stuff, things that should be used across all your API. And then on your routes, you have, let me show you this one first. So basically this is our permission object. As you can see, we have an activity called drive, and I can only drive if it's my car. I can only fuel if it's my car. I can fuel it whenever I want. If not, it can only be fueled if it's not on sale and the gas tank is empty. So this is the real configuration. It's really simple to understand who has access to drive, who has access to fuel. These are the functions, so they are one-liners. They are really, really simple, and this is how you configure this. Here on the routes, so basically this is saying we have a get route that receives an ID, and it will retrieve the car, and the cars are these ones based here. Yeah, this is a stupid example, but yeah. And basically what I'm doing here is just calling check if I can drive the car. I will return the car. If not, well, you cannot. It will return 403 forbidden. And there's one also for fuel. So it's that simple to add authorization to your routes. So let me try to show you that this works, I hope. So let's see if the app is running. Yeah, I started it already. And yeah, so I have here, can you see it? It basically it's a get request to Alice car, and the user is Alice. And yes, I can see it. But if I change the username to Bob, yeah, I'll say no, you cannot access this, because what this is doing is basically drive. This is calling drive, and it's saying my car. So the username, that's what's being passed on the query param. It's not the owner name of the entity, so you're not allowed access. So we have other examples, for example, for fuel. So if I'm Alice and I'm trying to fuel Bob's car, I cannot, because this is not on sale, right? The gas tank, this is on sale, but the gas tank from Bob's car is not empty, as we can see here. Yeah, so yeah, and the last price. Yeah, this is just an example, so you can see. And so this is what I've set up, and what I really wanted to show you is how simple it is to create a new route and a new authorization. So just to make it simple, I'll create a new route called paint. Yeah, so we can paint our car. That basically will call the permission paint with the same car. It's really straightforward. This is not what I want to show you. So, and then on permission, on the configuration object, what I need to do is, it was called paint, right? So for paint, the permissions are, let's say, if, let's see, so if it is my car, I can change it to anything what I want. If it's not my car, I want to change it only to red or yellow. So this is basically the colors, as you probably noticed. And what I'm stating here is that these only two should be a new validator, right? And this will basically get the resource and the payload. As I've told you, there are other stuff here that can be passed on. And I don't need this. What I'm doing this is if the resource dot, if the payload, sorry, payload dot color, yeah, and there's config would be this object. So for this would be true, so we don't need to pass it because it's already a boolean. If it's an array, I get it through here, and basically I will say config dot includes payload.color, right? And this is basically, I don't need this. This is basically telling us that you can only change the color if you're changing it to either red or yellow. And we need to add the validators here because this was not passed in as a default one. Are you following? This is maybe too quick, sorry. Yeah, so basically this is our new route, and I can only change the car color to red or yellow. And yeah, I've got this already prepared. So if I'm Bob, and if I try to change the color to black, I should get a forbidden. Yeah, cool. If I'm Alice, yeah, I can do it. If I'm Bob again, I can change it to red. Yeah, so it works. Yeah, quite simple. Yeah, and one other thing that I want to show you is that permissions wrapper that I was telling you about. That's really, really interesting for front-end folk. So what that other function receives is the request, and the request is being passed on. Basically what that does is, when your request is being handled, it injects here, it stops the request flow, it injects whatever you want and continues. And to get it on the right, on this spot, happy.js, and it's awesome, can do, we have something like on pre-response. I think it's this. Basically, this is telling for the server, create a breakpoint on this step, and these are like constant steps for the whole happy.js framework. And what we will try to do was permissions.wrap permissions, and on, I think it's post, yeah, on post response permissions. Okay, and basically what this will do is, sorry, it's not on post response, it's, yeah, I've got on post handler, sorry, yeah, I've got some sheets, yeah. Okay, this should be running up. And when I try to access, yeah, you can see here what I can do. So this is with one line, right? With one extra line, you just get for all your routes, you get the permissions, and then on the UI you can just grab this and do whatever you want for your app. So this is still an ongoing process. We're still developing the. We are using it on production like it is, and it's awesome. It's like saving us a lot of trouble. But yeah, it's not yet open sourced. We want to do it maybe in some time. So it will probably be available soon at NPM. Yeah, this is my Twitter and my GitHub handler. And yeah, I don't know if you have any questions. If not, go Ben. To do templating?
Yeah. Templating, and at the same time stopping any type of requests that are unwanted.
Yeah, basically, and doing that in an easy, readable way. So if you're looking at the permissions object, right? If you have this for every route or something, it's quite simple for you to understand what's going on.
Just one question, and the after question is,
yeah, sure.
How does that work in terms of exposure? Because you are actually exposing the permissions.
Yeah, Basically, we don't care, right? Because if you have access to them, you are talking about this permissions object, right?
Yeah, it's per user.
These permissions objects will only show up the ones that you have access. Will not show the ones that are false. This is basically just because it's easier from the UI. You just check if it's set. If it's set to a Boolean name true, it's easier.
So the response are always Boolean, never.
Yeah. It's always like this.
Okay.
And we have some tweaks that you can tie this up to. If you have something like data and meta, something like that, you can do it. If you have, I don't know, if you have a list, for example, it's really interesting if you have a list. If you're doing this, we are basically iterating at every item of your list and doing stuff to it, which can be slow if you're not doing things properly. So we have like a flag that if you want to really apply this for lists or not. But if you're querying for a list that's like over 50 results, you're doing something bad, right? And it should not take that long.
Have you considered JWT tokens? Like going back to his question.
Yeah.
Because you're exposing how your backend works, like at least permission-wise.
Yeah.
I understand that makes sense for your front end and helps a lot, solves a lot of problems. But at the same time, you're exposing to everybody how basically your permission server works.
Yeah, but I don't know why is that bad. I don't know why is bad, right? Because if you have an API, you should have like a public documentation, right, or something like that, and you already say what are you allowing the requests, right? And this will basically map to Drive it's that endpoint or not. You can reuse them from you already have that information out there. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying it makes sense in this scenario. Like for your company, it makes sense.
Of course, yeah. But for all, it makes sense. But yeah.
I was just thinking like with the JWT token, you do the same thing.
Yeah.
You don't expose how it behaves. It's just that, and you can still reuse the token as a payload every time. You just pass the token. Your backend is the one that should handle that, not your front end.
But then your front end wouldn't know if he can do the request.
You can decode the payload.
Yeah.
I know it's like extra work, but
yeah.
At least it's not.
The thing is, this is quite simple.
It's not readable.
It's helped us a lot to make sense because we had the authorization split across both entities, and then it's crazy.
For templating, it's really nice, and I can see a lot of use for app side. But if you are handling sensitive information, that was more my point. For handling sensitive information, you still defend it because it's that user that you are giving. It's not like you cannot have broad access.
Yeah. So it's just for that user, and he should know what he has access to because he has access to it. So we are not hiding anything from the users, I think. So yeah.
So, but you give sensitive information plain text. I know.
It's not sensitive because you already have access to it, right?
You are always keeping it booleans, like true or false.
Yeah, because it's just if you can do this action or not. Right? Sorry?
You don't encode the permission that you don't have.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the ones that you don't have are not there. So yeah.
If you want to do things like control the request, the user can do accept. Is it the target things enable that too, or
no, I think rate limiting, right? Something like that. We could, like say, instead of just true, you can have like true and the number of requests you still have, something like that. But yeah, it wasn't our purpose to do something like that, but it could maybe be tweaked to work with that, maybe. Yeah, but this is, maybe. If you put in some effort, it can maybe work. Yeah.
And another thing, on the permissions, the other part, you have always to put a constant there. You cannot
here provide
expressions
you basically whatever you provide here will be here. So you can provide whatever you want. So basically, this is being passed here. This is the request payload. This is the resource you're passing. Sorry, maybe this is too fast. The resource you're passing here. So So you can have access, might be a function, an object with 3 properties, one of them a function, might be whatever you want. The entire world.
Yeah, because the point is sometimes you have a very simple condition and you have to rewrite it somewhere else. And
this can be shared. So for example, I was telling you that when you instantiate the library, you pass in a configuration file. Here, you can pass on some validator that you keep reusing on every route. You can just pass it on here, and it will be available, and you won't have to define the function here because it's already set, right? You just need to set the conditions. If, for example, if you add these only 2 on the other file here, we didn't have to instantiate, right, the function, and for one route we could have red, yellow, for another one pink, for another one black. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
I have another question.
Sure.
Just correct me if I'm wrong. If you need to have like permissions that are defined by the user, so like the administrator that can grant permissions to users, you need to use roles, right? You can use something like this.
Oh, you can use it like this because in here, like if you really stretch this to the max, you can use roles inside these permissions, right? This is really interesting because you still can use roles here, but you can use roles and other business rules. And it can be, because the problem with roles is that it's not clear what the role means, and in here it's pretty clear what you're trying to do, because it's a configuration thing and the function you're evaluating, or the expression, it's there. So there's no magic. So yeah, maybe it can help. And even you can edit this file in real time. Like if you're having a dashboard that you can give permissions, you could have possibly a real time editing of this and creating and removing.
Updates the request in real time.
Sorry?
Updates the request.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So the real world application of this would be like shared use of things when different users can update or resource.
Yeah, I think it can be for any kind of API. If you have objects stored somewhere or entities, and you're trying to access them, if you're trying to do different things to them, this is like a really good use case.
Sure. So resources that only are updated by one user, why do I need this? Can I don't just have like a role-based authorization?
Yeah, it might be simpler if you just have one set of, for example, cars. You might have different types of cars, right? If you have different types of cars, if you apply the same rule for each of them, then it gets messier, because this in here you can specify rules for each type of car you're trying to access, and for each user trying to access them. But if it's a really simple use case, this might be too much. But there are no simple use cases in real life. Yeah, but basically you can do just this based on roles. We also have like for our internal use, you have something like is admin or something like that. Yeah, because they can do anything. So yeah, you can use it with roles, but you can use it with other stuff, not just roles. Cool. Yeah. So thank you guys.
Are you testing this code with snapshots?
No, we're not. We are using Mocha for unit testing, and just unit testing.